what that shortcut code is. Hello, 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 gamers. Hello, everybody. Hello. Pre-game preamble. You know how it is. We're just getting ready to go live here. Got some isolation shit. I do feel like, well, maybe it's just me, but oh man, I might need to actually like start using. Might actually need to watch like a video on how to better set up a scent shield. Not that I don't think I can with my current setup. I just might need to take a couple days to do it. So, but today, we're going to be doing more writing. Of course we are. That image save without his shoes. Oh, I'm so bad. You freaking did. It's frustrating. God dang it. I'll have to make a new one for later then. Anyways, gamers, how are we doing today? Doing well. I'm doing well, all things considered. Your boy did have a migraine though, so that was a little bit of an annoyance. So, fortunately, because of that, I missed work again today. It sucks because I don't like missing work. But we're going to be continuing on with our story stuff. The goal objective is today is to either finish chapter 2 and start chapter 3 and then go from there. I will say though, I did mention it before and earlier, but we do have somebody else that is now looking at my story. I talked about it yesterday. Where my other mod, Mr. Yazui, is going to be looking over the story as well. They have a pretty good experience with reading like online novellas, fan works. I mentioned it briefly during the Destiny 2 stream that they are a fan of the Wandering Tavern, I believe is what it's called. So I take their word on what they think about it, and to give me some insight as to how I can improve the story. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and make it so that a lot of this stuff is cohesive. But today's objective is I want to finish off running with Purple Hands, the Purple Hand Gang, and then go into chapter 3. I think what I'm going to have happen in chapter 3 is I want this interaction. I almost wonder if we need this interaction with Dakota running into the Purple Hand, because it almost feels like we're having Dakota kind of run around a little too much. Where he should be focused more so on his objective, which is trying to find Reagan. But I feel like it's the problem that I'm having currently, and it's not really necessarily a problem, but it's like I don't want the story to feel like location. Dakota's here for this reason. Dakota's here for that reason. Like, him going to see Trueleaf makes sense in the story because that's the source of information that he was given. And so then it also then makes sense for him to go to the Purple Hand. But now he's gone through like 6 different locales in the first 2 chapters of the book, right? He went from his apartment to the headquarters, or from the apartment to the Silver Scale, to the Postman Spire, to streets, run into Gregor, to then go to the wooden alcove, to now the Purple Hands HQ. That's 7 different places we've already been through in the first couple chapters. That feels like we're on to too much. So what I'm thinking we're going to be doing is I think we might cut him going to the Purple Hand until later. Only because I feel like we're going to too many different places, right? Like, we've gone to so many different locales, and it's like, well, it's not technically a bad thing to do that. It's only been 2 chapters, and we visited 7 different places. That just feels like it's too much. Because the one thing I don't want to have happen with the story is it just feel like, and then Dakota went here, and then stuff happened, and then Dakota goes there, and then stuff happens. So it's like, I feel like we need to have Alray, the interaction between Dakota and Trueleaf happen. Because that makes sense, right? We need to have that happen because it's the first lead that Dakota gets on what's going on. Alray says, yeah, I do plan on taking over a gang. It's the Purple Hand. They want to go legit. And because Dakota's strictly off the books right now, he can't really do anything about it because then it will be recorded, right? So he's trying to stay off the books so that they can figure out if somebody at the Postman Spire is a mole. Which there is a mole there. It's a thrall of the Bloodsmith is there. And so my thinking is what we'll do is instead of going to their separate headquarters, because like, yeah, we're gonna have him run into I think we're gonna have it where instead of going to the main office, it's gonna be him on the way to the Violet Rose, where he runs into Reagan, and then instead of having him there at this point, we'll have him go there after the run-in with Reagan, where he goes to their main building. He figures that's where Reagan's going, because it's like, well, that's the most powerful king here. And then that way, then it's not so many locales in just 2 chapters. It's a handful of locales. Because I feel like, yeah, it just feels like 7 different places is a ton to cover. I mean, 6 isn't much better, realistically speaking, but 6 feels more natural when you got 3 different locations a chapter, right? So it's like, I do wonder though, because the other thing is like I want chapters to be kind of decent chunks of page reading. I feel like 20 is a good spot for that. So I'm wondering if we need to kind of like trim the fat, get chapter 2 wrapped up, I mean, what we could do is we could actually read through chapter 2. We could read through what we got chapter-wise, find things that stand out, and then change them accordingly, right? I feel like that would be a good place to kind of have us go right now. We're going to go ahead and scroll like this. And we're also, I feel like this is a good thing to still keep here. So, opener season 1, chapter 1 outline. Technically, if we're counting the flashback, it's 8 different. But, like, the one location of him and his mindscape doesn't necessarily matter. So it's also kind of like the thing about... Alright, so let's just start reading. You know, it's actually been a minute since we read the whole thing. Would you guys actually want me to kind of like go through the whole story? I kind of want to go through the whole story. Let's actually do that real quick. So let me get the forward chapter up. Been a hot minute since we read. We're going to do that real quick. That's slightly up. See, like, the forward and prologue is 22 pages. I feel like that's a good length. Hello, Lime. You're addicted to gold. Well, that's not a bad thing. But addicted in what way? Also, it has been a hot minute since we read through the entirety of the project, so I'm going to do that because I need to figure out... So, the problem that I'm running into, I don't know how much of you heard when I started, but the problem that I'm running into right now with the story, in my opinion, is I feel like we're jumping to locations too much, and I kind of need to not have that be a thing. So, if we take everything into consideration, like, between chapter 1, well, realistically, the forward, prologue, and chapter 2, we're looking at, like, 8 to 9 different locales. You know? So it's like, I do wonder... Yeah. But it's like, some of the locales, like, we're working with, exploding one of them. So, like, here's the thing, right? So in the prologue and forward, we go from city streets to the construction site and then back to the Postman Tower. We got 3 in the forward and prologue, not counting the second-person perspective of being at the movie rental place. Then we got the streets, the construction site, the Postman Tower. Don't really go back to the construction sites at all. We do go back to the Postman Tower, so that's fine. I mean, granted, we're on the outside of it when we get there. So, and then in chapter 1, we got the Howell apartment, penthouse, living space. You got the Silver Scale School, which technically you could say Silver Scale School and the Wooden Alcove are like part of the same location. You want to argue that, but it's not like the same on the inside of the Wooden Alcove as it is at Silver Scale. So we go from apartment. Oh, Asuna, we're not gaming today. So we go from apartment to Silver Scale to Postman Spire. So we've been to the Postman Spire twice. I feel like that's fine. We don't need to worry about getting rid of that location. Going to Silver Scale is important because it establishes... Brother! because it establishes what Emily's doing. The wooden alcove feels important. We technically go back to the streets again, too, because we go see Gregor. Stretch Kasuna. Posture reset. Oh, and a hydrate. Thank you, sir. So we go from Postman Spire, apartment, Silver Scale, Postman Spire, streets, wooden alcove, all in a span of like 2 chapters, which feels like a lot, right? But that if you break it into averages, it's like
start the game already.
So you just like throwing stuff at me, Kasuna. That's what it is. You don't want to have on. Of course, I don't make it out with any of the money. Go figure. And one shmoney. You and Kasuna both did. Good job, you two. Oh no! Jeez. You're at 2.4 mil. Kasuna, that's not bad. Because, like, you don't really engage much with the trivia or the gambling. Good grief. Been in big. Okay. So, I need to actually change the music so I can focus a little bit. For it. Hello, Romulus. I'm about to get more stuff thrown at me, ain't I? I am gaming. I'm writing. I'm not gaming. I'm writing. Oh no! Ow! God, mean to me. Ow! Don't mind me, I'm just adjusting audio. I feel like it's really, really quiet. Oh, what was Slay the Spire at? Fix it later. Okay. If you all have a moment, we're going to read through the story so far. Forward. This writing project was made possible by not only the many friends and family who encouraged me to go through and try out the streaming thing once more, those who showed up not only to offer ideas but support and passion for the project to go forward. None of this would ever have come to be without you all.
Start the game already!
Thank you all. Jared. You remember this place being much more alive back when you grew up in this town. You technically didn't grow up in this specific spot of town. You lived more so on the outskirts of town. You remember coming to this video rental store back then. It was what was it? It wasn't a Blockbuster, yet you recall the logo vividly on the side of the building being blue next to what was once a cheap pizza chain store. This oddly shaped strip mall was more like a corner L market placed off from two of the busiest intersections. Many of your Saturday evenings growing up here were spent looking over all the various movies, games, candies, popcorn selections, and books for rent in the now worn-out building. Odd for a movie rental place to have books along with their selection, but it fits the vibe of this place naturally, especially given how much of the town often felt put together for rent. Different cultures from all over the different heritages that coalesced here in this once booming lumberjack town. Time before time. You can see your car, blocking the doors out of habit from living in a larger city now. We're well over an hour away from home. You're not sure why tonight, I wanted to come here, especially as you just left your parents' house not too long. Came here anyways. Nostalgia, memories, yearning for a simpler time. Simpler times. The answer never quite came to you, but regardless of the answers not given, you find your face in the darkened reflection of the glass doors of the building that had long since been empty. There's racks of empty shelves lining the wall, boxes filled with them. Whoever owned it since then seemed to try and rebrand the store into a comic shop, a store, a gaming shop. All seemed like failed ventures once the town started to catch up to them. The owners never parted with the building, probably due to wanting more for the establishment. Buyers were test the doors, expecting them not to open. Surprised though, they do. Gently pry the door open to see that the lights were on inside. Tinted glass would explain why. Darkened glass was yes, you just missed the owner. Regardless, you move into the store, phone in hand as you get ready to go. Suddenly, you get a feeling that maybe recording yourself trespassing is probably not the best of ideas. Sure, it was unlocked, maybe a valid excuse to let yourself into your friend's home, but not here. Put the phone away. As you look towards your pocket, that's when you notice a box with a note on top of it that was sitting on the countertop next to you. Glance down at the note. Check with Mark. Found these in the attic for a box of old promo posters when we had that deal for Friday BOGO popcorn packs or whatever. Never heard of these cartoons before, can't find anything online. Ask him if he wants to try to give the nerds upstate a call. Scott. Look further down into the box and see a clean stack of neon packaged VHS tapes, all sorted and stacked neatly. So it looks like the classic Star Wars A New Hope box art on them. Clearly satirized and done up with characters you've never seen before. Prominently, you notice that the one up front is a burly looking sword and gun aiming up. He's got a weird looking cyberpunk tech coat on him, with what looks to be dog-like features, wolf maybe, or a slush. He also clearly was some sort of military-based hero, some sort of werewolf. You're not too sure, but you see other various fantasy-esque characters in the game. The similarly clad vampires seem to be replacing Vader in the background with the name Arcane Chronicles. Across the top with a smaller subtext title, Nox Mille Star, Season 1 written on it, by the publishing house called Farfetched Tales. It seemed incredibly He-Man-like in nature, like as if it was a competitor that never took off in America, or, well, anywhere for that matter. You've never seen this before. Glancing around, to make sure you were alone still, you picked up a tape and gave it a heft. Well, that's good. It probably meant that there was a lot to watch. However, upon closer inspection, you noticed that the tape was meant to be an elaborate package for a I felt out of place. Why would such a retro-looking cartoon have been brought up at that level of technology and still be this heavy? How many DVDs would be needed for a season of a late 80s to early cartoon show? Better way to find out. Watch it. Pop open the case and see how many discs are inside. You're surprised. It had a white index card-esque note inside with another written message on it. The note was clearly mass-produced, but still had a feel of a personalized. Hey, you don't know me, nor I you. This was a project of love from three brothers. We often butted heads, we argued, but we always came together to enjoy a Saturday morning cartoon at the channel. Those days are long gone for us now. Moved on, we grew up, but still, here I am. My publisher works with an overseas company from Japan. It took all that I had to even do this at all, but I believe our vision came true with this afterwards. We made our own Saturday morning. It, well, never got picked up by anyone. We lost all the money. Well, I did, but our dream was realized. Sometimes chasing your dreams will lead to them coming true. I'm the way you think. This is proof of that. I may never see the day when this cartoon takes off. Made sure we had enough to work with just in case. Go on for 7 or even 10 seasons. You might even outshine Scoop. You're reading this and find these tapes here. I set up a P.O. box where you can fill out this flyer and send it in to us over at. Pause reading the note as something clattered off in the back of the store. Put the note back in the case and shut it, setting it down as you go off towards the back. Getting past a row of empty shelves and a stack of boxes, you see that the door to the back office had been knocked. More mystery than you would have expected on the subject. The office door was opened by another stack of those VHS tape pieces, having fallen out of another box haphazardly stacked back behind other visitors' gates. Sighing out of release, you decided that even though it's probably a crime and a possible issue with your compass, you take one of these cases and look about before going into the office to see if there is any surprises here. You can see there are only 2 boxes available to look through. One having what looked like ragged old shirts for employees in it, and the one that knocked the door open. Satisfied with your lack of finding anything, inside now would be a very good time to leave. Mystery in hand. This would prove to be a decision that would change the course of how you looked at your nostalgia when dreaming of your youth. You have now set something in motion you could never quite understand, and the journey to learn more about this Arcane Chronicles leads you down upon. Taking the DVDs in hand, you decide to resume looking through the case. To your surprise, you see that not only it was a disc for Season 1, but also an OST for the show, a documentary disc, a poster of all things. Lamenting that your car didn't have a CD player, you waited to listen to it until you got home. The note still hung in your mind, but being a responsible driver, you left it alone in the case. Questions lingered. The trip home gave you plenty of time to dwell on what would be revealed, searching and looking at this series. Prologue, Episode 0. Of What the Dreams That Come from Darkness. Thursday, April 28th, 2698. ENFT. Locale, Central Postman Tower of New Albany. Luck, Faith, Perseverance. Quote often used by the various mage orders from the alchemy. Be it as it may, Steward, we cannot just have this information readily available for just anyone to find and scoop up with their daily news feeds. Have a status to maintain, and that we keep the peace here even if one of our brightest have gone rogue. Hitting me with head pats right now? Like, yeah. There was a pause on the other side of the communicator. There was a pause as the other side of the communicator flared up with some anger from the caller. The clerk attending kept her gaze down and away from the wizard as he awaited for his turn to speak. Things have not been going well since what transpired the other night. Rumors of a mysterious killer on the loose have once been a postman, a powerful augmented agent, highest ranks of government made to keep devastating to the trust and security of all that they, the postmen themselves, aimed to do. She rubbed her temple as the stress from all this transcribing made it difficult for her to even think of all the ramifications that would befall this branch. It hurts. Now, I understand the public needs to be aware of this, the wizard said calmly, despite the red of his face betraying what a really feeling. But if we do admit that it is one of our own, risk losing the very thing the postmen were aiming to do. Turn back to look over the night sky of the city through the massive window atop the spire they were stationed in. Yes, we will be changing up mission for the postman to go and handle this as a top priority. No, you cannot say that this may be a rogue postman, as we cannot confirm that yet. For all we know, this is just another villain dabbling in some dark magic that the judges are not too concerned with. Yeah, I guess that is technically the correct way for it. The clerk looks out to the night above the city as well. Years have passed since the founding of the world. Even in that small window, not a trust. See this postman. Even in that small window, the amount of trust that people put into the postman here has been staggering. They were untouchable in the eyes of the public. A group of heroes that continued to do good for everyone, not just the rich and the powerful, did wonders. Who knew? You stopped massaging your temple as another message flared up from her. In 200 hours, stand for power. Bring a recorder and a communicator. Let's talk. Hello, chum. How you doing today? Line probably not of my own work. I don't want to get people's hopes up. You know what I mean? If you want to do it, fine. Be my guest. But sorry, Lime. That's not what I do. I have random writing prompts. You do? That's cool. I'm right now today, chum. We're reading through everything to see if we can find anything else we need to change up before I resume working on chapter 2 and then maybe start chapter 3. But please feel free to share. The clerk glanced back over at the wizard, thinking he had stopped talking for no moment. Stood still, mouth slightly agape. He stared out the window. The clerk followed his gaze, her eyes now widened as she saw what her superiors are. A dark red smear began floating across the horizon he had seen before. I'd write later, but I didn't keep. Well, that is definitely not what I was expecting. It definitely is random. I haven't heard of direction in a very long time. The clerk felt unlike anything she had seen before. The communicator flared up angrily once more, as if the other side had asked a question that did not get an answer in a timely manner. The wizard cleared his throat and exhaled. Yes, but this is very serious. He had now gone to talking about how they were handling it and didn't need. And gone on talking about how they were handling and didn't need the help from agents on hand would suffice in handling. One is a giant, like the Paul McCartney. The clerk doubted. The clerk felt the doubt in his voice as much as she had in her. They would need help if they saw who had been. Sorry. The clerk felt the doubt in his voice as much as she had. They would need help if what they saw was who had been committing these. The communicator clicked dead as she verified the conversation was recorded for peer review. He'd seen that kind of magic once. The wizard tucked the brim of his hat down as he dialed a new number into his computer. A series of pings ran throughout the clerk's. We haven't had to deal with a villain like this in nearly 500 years. As if the white could not stand out anymore against his darker skin. The wizard seemed to age all at once as he nervously trembled. Fear was palpable. It's a vampire, Lord, he murmured, as his fingers danced across the communicator's interface. He was putting on a call to all available postmen in the first fear was beginning. As he did, another smear began to form in the night sky. Smoke and fire started to rise from the virgin smear. Paul McCartney. Yes, the one from the Beatles. Sorry, I thought the ad was playing. My bad. But thank you for the 3 streak. Appreciate that. Get to enjoy spending those widgets. May the judges grant us mercy. This message is to all available units in the purposeful intended auto-crafted message of utmost importance. The engines on the Omni vehicle roared louder as the transport shifted from street mode to air. The driver cleared out his last coordinates as he moved the vehicle to go airborne. Try the Eddie moment. That is understandable. I wouldn't want creators of things that I enjoy to find my fan fictions either. We do not send a message like this lightly. As you are all well aware, your duty is first and foremost to the people of our great city. The driver thumbed a button on the visual display before him, purposing silently to himself. The postman looked over his shoulder, verifying how much he had on his person for such a load. Second, it's to ensure that whatever threatens our greater unity is called swiftly and well. The postman ran a quick diagnostic test over his tactical to make sure all the spells, armors, weapons, and that his watch was ready for combat, fully charged, locked and loaded. We have reports of a cataclysmic target sighted, last seen exiting a civilian sector, possibly having started a fight. Westward, towards a construction zone. Emergency agents of the Medical Guild have been alerted to aid the local law enforcement body to attend the route. Local firefighting guild dispatched. Postman shifted into see. He couldn't control his excitement. Finally, action. He felt like the last few weeks being stationed in this part of the city kept him from the majority of the action occurring in the higher district. But now, he was the closest to this villain's range. He advised, target is extremely dangerous and will require utmost lethal force to be dealt with, not attempt to capture. Destroy target without harming innocent. He advised. Other postmen around confirm if joining the hunt so that other agents are aware. He advised. Witnesses claim target has possible hostage. Confirm objective acknowledgement. Proceed with mission. Wolfen Postman smirked behind his combat visor as he gave a reply. This is Postman Agent Dakota. Mission go. Let's help bring about our destiny. As Jared Dakota Howell accelerated towards the target, he saw several other acknowledgements come through. To his horror, he saw another priority message come through above all others. Mission reassigning. All other available units proceed to forward coordinates. Possible outbreak detected. He advised. Civilians compromised. Agents Dakota and Yuri proceed and hunt. Other agents converge and help contain outbreak. Rendezvous with leading law enforcement agent Groundside. Of how you're feeling. Well, I can't say my fanfiction's ever had that go on. Jared slumped a bit in his Omni vehicle seat. This hunt was clearly warranted to be the cataclysmic target designation. But what could cause a fire and then an outbreak? Just flee the scene. A necromancer? A demon? Something wasn't sitting right about this, and Jared was itching to find out. Also, this would be the first time he got to do an assignment with the elusive Agent Yuri. He knew of her, and heard she was one of the first other postmen made, but didn't quite remember where she came from. No one would. Agent Dakota would check his gear once more, and speed off towards his target. As it is, so it will be. Postmen deliver justice. Little did anyone deployed tonight know that this would be the start of something that would ever come back from him again. Jared least of all. For tonight, Jared would meet something impossible to me. Vampire Lord. Postman gone rogue. Lime. Dakota ex-reader, but Dakota has been cursed and needs a kiss of true love. Weird plot twist. He needs a kiss from his mother on his cheek because he's a good boy and doesn't write smut. Oh, man. As the ambient noises of the engines hummed in Dakota's ears, the postman ran through the myriad of outcomes of how this could go down with whatever this enemy was. Ooh. I feel like we're teetering on some Alabama stuff. The postman ran through the myriad of outcomes of how this could go down with whatever this enemy was. Main base had not updated him on what the other postmen dealing with themselves, or if they had any confirmation about the target, of what the target actually was. No updates if it was a lich, necromancer, demon, or anything like it. He continued to coax the Omni vehicle to go faster as it zipped through the air. Dakota began pushing these concerns down into the back of his mind as he focused on getting to the target. He had to get to them first before he could worry about how to take them out. Mario Bro. Yeah, trivia only works with the person that puts in the trivia command, by the way. So if you want to do it, you need to wait for the other person to finish asking you doing the question. Also, I think your credits are a lot higher. You have 12,847 credits, by the way. I'm taking a break from Firebot.
Awawa.
Oh, Wawa. Have a sip of some Wawa. Postman ran through the myriad of outcomes. Already read that. Could have began pushing these concerns down. He had to get to them first before he could worry about how to take them. You can't defeat your enemy without knowing what they are first. After all, we all have strengths and weaknesses that we account for. Words flowing from his old mentor brain. Dakota normally wasn't one to be so concerned with the target's mind. There wasn't much he couldn't take down alone, yet something about this mission seemed to make him take a pause. Normally, anything that could do this was stated out as soon as the call to action was given. allowing each postman time to prepare for the fight ahead. Happen this time. Idea for a fanfic is a person writing an awful fanfic, but then getting it. That would be. Isn't that what Stephanie Meyer technically did with Twilight? Dakota was surely confident in his combat prowess, but had his doubts. Thankfully, or head pads. Hello, Diamond. Thankfully, had Eerie accompanying him. And out of all the other postmen he knew, she was by far one of the. She never seemed to fail a mission, although her rating stayed very low in the club. I always found that odd. Maybe she wasn't much of a people. Often, though, she was sent on more specialized missions, being handpicked by the higher positions. He had a very particular set of skills that often went hand in hand with him. It didn't take long for Dakota to eventually catch up to the target, as the crimson cloud surrounding them made it rather easy to see them. There is a Dotnet in chat. Well, hello, Dotnet. Hope you're doing well today. Also, Romulus, I don't remember. Did I ask how you're doing today? I hope you're doing well. Sorry if I completely ignored that. My apologies. I hope you all are doing well. I'm just making some money today. Doing all right. Well, I'm reading through the story right now, because what the hope is, is that I kind of explained it earlier, but seems how I got more people here. The fear that I have with the current story is that we're hitting too many locales, like different locations, in very short periods of time. Like, granted, yeah, the chapters are roughly 20 pages or so, but it's without the exclamation point. Oh, that was really loud. Really loud. Ow. So what I'm doing right now is I'm rereading through the story to see if there's anything else I missed. And just making slight edits and tweaks as I go through. Didn't take long for Dakota to eventually catch up to the target. The clouds surrounding them made it rather easy to see them. The postman growled softly as he slowly began to piece together what he wanted. The crimson cloud was the first giveaway. He wished he had some blessed munitions on him, as there was only one thing he knew of for sure with that kind of power. Yeah, a lot of people want to watch the world go boom. Sticky grenade! Ugh. I remember a girl in the news talking about how she got rich off of plus-size smut, and I envied her as a writer. I think that's kind of the dream, though, is to be able to, I feel like that's the envy, though, of a lot of people, is to get rich for doing something that they themselves already do as a hobby. I mean, I'll be honest, there's times where I'm guilty of that, but I just center myself and remind myself that I'm gratefully employed, and the job that I do for a living pays very well and affords me a lot of things that I normally wouldn't have. There's only one thing he knew for sure with that kind of power: empire. As he readied himself to go into the night, his vehicle began to confirm his knowledge, not by its own volition, but by the communicator flaring up. It was a postman on the site of where the fire was, calling out to main base about what the situation was going to be. Nothing wrong with having guilty pleasures, so long as they're not illegal. HQ, be aware. Fire is being put out. However, contagion is confirmed. Some civilians in the sector have been compromised. Multiple deaths, outbreak to be vampiric. We can try to contain and knock out targets before the vampiric outbreak spreads. However, we do not have the munitions available to do safe containment at full capacity. Orders. Dakota's heart sank. There is only one order he wished he never had to hear. So, he shut off his communicator to not hear what would become of those infected. He couldn't stand that level of failure. Also, a 3 streak from Dotman. Thank you very much. No, there's a chair. Ow. So he shut off his communicator to not hear what would become of those infected. He couldn't stand that level of failure. Grimacing with rage, he opened his vehicle up, drawing his rifle as the shifting magics began. opening the canopy to allow Dakota to stand up and get ready to take aim onto the vampire. He saw did in fact have a hostage. The hostage was a younger-looking person, maybe in their early 20s at the old. He couldn't quite tell as the crimson energy flowing out from their mouths and eyes began to coalesce around the vampire. The victim was clearly knocked out from the vitality leaving them. Be consumed by the vampire. Had to act fast. MV Caesar for getting you lime. It was for other people's pleasure, and they probably found it pleasurable. Oh no! No! He did not get pegged. He got stabbed multiple times. Lord alive. He had to act fast. Holstering his weapons and readying his watch for 2 spells, he leapt out of his vehicle. The vehicle shifted back to close and disappeared, vanishing into invisibility as the postman raced towards his target. The spell he channeled were that of speed and omni, giving near full control in the night air as he. Unfortunately, the vampire herder sensed him and turned towards Dakota suddenly, ceasing the flow of magic and tossing the body aside. The body disintegrated into ash and dust as the vampire finished his. Dakota was too late, and that was when Dakota noticed the vampire's outfit. The vampire garb was of a very similar nature to what Dakota was wearing. Tattered, worn, damaged, and covered in vitality wounds. All the anger and rage boiling inside Dakota. That is when the woven postman drew out his pistol and fired upon the vampire. The magical... Yeah, it was steel daggers making it. The magical cloud began to dissipate as the rounds of magic began to pepper into the dark. However, it became clear to Dakota that this vampire wasn't just... As with regular vampires, even the magical nature of the bullets would have staggered him. This vampire was a postman. They just doomed so many people. While flying in closer, yeah, comment. Flying in closer, that is when Dakota realized he knew who this vampire was. Dakota didn't want to believe it. He heard of this postman's prowess and knew what they were capable of. No one's seen them in months. Dakota assumed they were in deep cover or something. He heard rumors of them possibly even being dead. Guess it was the worst outcome. Wolf and postman pressed on. Said postman on. Naively presuming that the postman naively presuming that the postman, unlucky victim, not doing of his own. Close to the gap, the other laughed harshly and channeled a dark energy blast. Dakota barely had time to dodge it. And worse. Much. Exactly wrong. Oh. I like the different caliber of conversations we got going on right now in chat. Yeesh. Taylor's. Oh, you once read half of a Taylor. That's why. Taylor Swift fan. Got it. They weren't affected by a vampire, they were the vampire. It's made dealing with them all the more too. Dakota yelled out his target's name. Reagan! As he did, the gap finally closed. Collided in air. The impact stunned the vampire, allowing Dakota to catch Reagan by the vampire's head. Clawed hands went for his wrists as Dakota began to somersault in the air before letting go. You same here, me and Lime are talking about Gruesome King helping each other. This is talking about things. No winnings for you heathens. Says the guy writing a fan fiction with supernatural character theme. Clawed hands went for his wrists as Dakota began to somersault in the air, letting go and flinging the vampire towards one of the many unfinished buildings. He had to deal massive damage to Reagan in sunbursts, as he knew the tattooed spells etched into his body would only be overloaded. My effing credits. I can't even keep up with this. No, we're good. I'm not above reading fanfic. Like Romulus is the main character. Yeah. I'll be honest, I've put myself in a lot of fan. Or like, who is my OC in fan fictions? Might have to main conversation because it's hilarious. No, they are having a lot of fun here. It's all good, you guys. He followed in as he needed to land before deactivating his Omni Move spell, so he wouldn't crash down into the building. As he flew downwards, Reagan impacted on the top concrete floor the husk of rebar and concrete, tracking the dried cement as he struggled to get back to his feet. Dakota landed a few feet away and fired at the fallen postman with his magic pistol, running the clip dry before readying another clip to slot into the weapon and barrage. I'm an unserious writer, the Michael Bay of Lime. No, no, we're not talking about Mr. Hands here today. Reagan, you monster, what have you done? Dakota cried out as he felt his own heart pounding harshly in his chest. The situation was so abhorrently dire now. Reagan, who was starting to slowly get back up, began feeling the round's impact his weakened shielding spell as he wiped the blood from his body. Vampire coughed and continued to stand back up in defiance of Dakota's onslaught. It was clear to Reagan that this was not meant to be a capture mission. Execution. Vampire winced. Here. The vampire winced as the rounds began to hinder him, making him draw his own weapons to fight back against Dakota. From the side of his tattered coat, he pulled out a heavy and massively bladed rope. It shimmered slightly in the pale moon's light as dark energy flowed down the length of the barrel. Dakota, not wanting to take a shot from a large magical hand cannon, dove behind the pillar. Checking his reserves, Dakota launched back out and took aim over Reagan, only for him not to be there. Only to see the vampiric postman now directly on top of him. Oh, no, they're talking about Mr. Hands in my chat. Once made a present on how to make a microwave. Oh, that's interesting, chum. That's actually really interesting. Dakota barely had time to block the oncoming assault as his pistol was shredded due to the magic in his crimson. What did I say his claws were? Postman called forth a shield of energy to protect him as he staggered back, doing his best to parry and block the flurry of attacks as his watch continued to hold. That's what I should probably do. Called forth a shield of energy to protect him as he staggered back, doing his best to parry and block the flurry of attacks as his watch continued to hold up the shield. I just want to make a Michael, babe. First things first, get a contract to work with the military. Reagan knew that the shield would be hard to get through normally, so he changed tactics. He lunged off Dakota's chest by grabbing onto the postman's arms, pulling him in close, bringing his booted feet up to the other's chest and kicking him, sending the bounty hunter away from him. As Reagan was midair, flipping backwards, he sent out a beam of orange energy. Dark energy whip was now in Reagan's place. As he sent forth its energy out towards Dakota to ensnare that woven postman. Dakota was caught up by the orange before he could react. Dakota was caught up by the orange energy. Dark energy whip was now in Reagan's. He sent forth its energy out towards his enemy to snare that woman. Before he could react, Dakota was caught by that orange energy. Dakota tried to grab at the crackling energy before Reagan whipped him back around and sent him crashing in. The impact left Dakota winded as his shield broke. He slowly tried to get up, but as he found his footing, a round impacted near his feet, shattering the floor the rest of the way as he fell through. He attempted to take a hold of the floor as it crumbled, taking him and Reagan down together. Hidden stereotypes, product placement, lens player, objectifying women, or maybe not. Let's say, yep. Also, a lot of explosions. These are your mod savage from your own actions. Have you united heathens from the underworld? Look, what the Lord gives, the Lord shall take away. So behave. I wouldn't do that. Probably not. As the dust began to dissipate from the floor collapsing, Dakota slowly got up. His combat visor flipped back over his face to help aid him in the space he occupied with the family. Oft rolling the dust out of his lungs, your tasted of dirt, dust, and copper. Alk taste confused Dakota until he felt the thick moisture of blood dripping from him. Great, now he knows exactly what. Alright, let's see what Ron has to say. Take a premise, have a weird storyline involving lots of action and weird relationships, have as many explosions as possible, insert some stupid drama to pad runtime, more explosions, dribble some unrelated plot points and drama, more actions with lots of explosions, set an arbitrary goal with impossible goals that will somehow be reached. More action, more explosions, and have a dramatic action showdown involving the U.S. military coming to the. Is that not a little? Look, I was quoting the Bible, okay? It's not blasphemy. I am not God by any stretches of the imagination, but this is my chat. That is also true. So Romulus and Chum are going to team together to make us a Michael Bay version of the story here. As Dakota went for his rifle, he felt the air move around him suddenly and saw a terrible glow of crimson as his claws slashed at him. Barely having time to react, he brought his arms up to defend, causing the vampiric postman to cut through the outer protections of the coat Dakota had on. Thankfully for the defender, Dakota knew a spell or two. Tried out. Level 2. Tried out in a dark growl. The spell was the simple one-worded command caused Reagan to be flung away suddenly. Vampire hissed in frustration as his hold was replaced by a gale force blast of wind, sending him tumbling end over end as Dakota rushed up, follow up with another attack. Weapons would do little help here. Okay, have your main character do impossible stuff with the U.S. military or Chinese military form. Help with more explosion. Exactly. You guys are fine. I'm just playing up the bid. Have your characters beat the bad guys with more explosions and characters beat stamina. Have the newest or highest rank perks only grants with explosions. Get a Megan Fox dupe. Mock Ray. That sir would do amazing. Oh man. Or have the Chinese and American military team up to fight aliens or something. Weapons would do little to help you. Now was the time for pure pugilistic skill. Rushing in quickly, the Wolven postman did his best to change his suit. Okay. Did his best to continue his blitz on the vampire. He let out a deep grunt as he brought his legs to bear, dropping a savage axe kick down onto Reagan's chest in his tumbling and disheveled state. The blow of the heel drop gave the fallen postman no time to recover. The hit made the vampire bounce up off the concrete floor and into Dakota, spinning about, delivering a roundhouse kick and a brutal haymaker to the vampire's face. Delivering a roundhouse and brutal haymaker, not a roundhouse kick, to the vampire's face, sending him once more tumbling. Rage was the only thing being exchanged on between growls and hisses, between attacks of fist and feet. Dakota needed his watch to recharge faster if he wished to do any major and proper damage. Feeling in order to give himself the space to do so. It was a gambit between what little energy Dakota had left in his watch and what rage was boiling over in that combo-locked vampire. Serious business. But milk that movie with 12 or more sequels, it's the same sort of formula. Yeah, you ain't wrong. Make a movie number 13, make it a spy movie and throw away all the established lore as well. Wait, you actually did, Chum? That's actually really cool. I'd be surprised or not. We need a SEAL Team 6 because America. Combo locked vampire. Each hit brought Dakota moments needed to recharge his watch. Each hit brought more frustration and incoherent noises out of Reagan. The two continued on in their brief exchange of blows. Dakota seemed to have the upper hand as he brought his blitz to a pause as he suplexed and smashed the vampire backwards into a support pillar, rattling the entire building. His watch was still not recharged. He could feel his body burning as he pushed himself to his limit. Reagan was still not down. Dakota kept punching into the man. As Dakota continued his desperate assault, the other shadow-clad postman stepped out from her cover, finally melting away from the shadows of the tiger. Turning her gaze briefly away from the two fighting as she waited for her moment. She wanted to turn her comms back on to hear how the others were faring in the break. She needed to focus on her actual mission. If she failed here, there may be no safe future. The other postman dropped her hood back away from her eyes. She wielded a shimmering pair of binoculars to help her focus away from them. Surely Dakota would hold his own a moment longer. He seemed uncandidly capable of keeping a man-made vampire lord at bay. Oh, that's cool, chum. Had an Instagram and Christ, huh? Very nice. So the usual team would the established lore by 13, so we could bring in nostalgia with our fans of the previous movies and have a team up against even bigger and badder foe that the heroes will somehow beat. Yeah. Power, friendship, and unyielding rage. Dakota would hold his own for a moment.
Boo.
Boo. Oddly enough, that one didn't actually cause me to jump. Because I was already distracted. He seemed uncannily capable of keeping the man-made vampire lord at bay. She focused through the shimmering pair of binoculars to the faded glow of the glowing eyes behind the lenses watched closely, but turned back to her current. As each fight, she studied the movements of both postmen. Hines seemed to ignore her, letting the fight pause as she seemingly wished to study things in them. That is when Eerie made the connection. When Eerie made. Reagan wasn't the only supernatural postman. Dakota felt it before he realized what had truly happened. He growled a bit before feeling his fist being pushed back away from the body he had been punching repeatedly into the cracked and broken support pillar behind the wall. He wielded his arms to go forward, but only felt his footing slide below. It seemed his luck was running out, and his watch was not yet. It's Need for Speed! Wait, hey, I think I picked up what you were putting down anyways. He willed his arm to go forward, but only his watch. Desperation began to sink into his really weary body. Very weary body. He had one option left. He didn't like this option. He didn't want to use this trump. Sadly, though, Reagan knew this card before it was cast. You fight for a system that's so broken you cannot fathom it, the vampire hissed, pushing Dakota back as the terrible glow of Reagan's eyes pierced into Dakota's soul. They created you. They created me. Words trailed in the air as Dakota's eyes began to glow behind his visor. The hair on his head began to grow longer as his sleeveless arms began to turn darker with gray and brown fur. Monsters, the both of us. They expected us not to give in to the primal needs we have. We crave the ending of life. These people are fuel for us. Don't deny yourself your nature. Your new nature. They jailed my boy. Big six and into the somewhat thought. I mean, it wasn't half bad, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing with like OG Transformers fans watching Michael Bay's Transformers. Optimus Prime wouldn't be like that. It's just how it is. Alright. See you in a bit. Stay safe, Dot. As if it was a command, Dakota hollowed in rage and drew his captured hand back in to bring Reagan in close, so he could headbutt him. But that was when he felt the sharp pain dig into his other shoulder. The blade from the revolver pierced through his coat and sunk deep into him. Pain was all Dakota could feel, as all his forward momentum was halted. Reagan laughed as if the damage Dakota poured into him was negated by that simple. Yeah, that's the one with Sean Connery and yeah, poor Hot Rod. They did my boy dirty. The Rock is Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. Yeah, fair enough. Pain was all Dakota could feel, as all his forward momentum was halted. Reagan laughed as if the damage poured into him was negated by that simple. You feel it? He asked, twisting the blade in against Dakota as the clawed hand grasped desperately into the vampire's hand. Blood oozed out from the knife wound as Dakota tried to remove the gun from his shoulder and out of Reagan's hand. Good. Was all that was said before the vampire ground and launched the knife off the end of his gun. It sent Dakota end over end as the blade lodged into the metal. Launched its metal into the bone of Dakota's shoulder. Dakota barely had any time to gasp or release the cry welling in his throat before a crimson-clawed hand clasped tightly around his neck and brought him off from him. Digging those accursed energy claws into his neck, Reagan relished the sight of Dakota squirming in agony. The blood magic seeping out from Reagan sent into Dakota unfathomable pain as the werewolf writhed about in that grasp. Dakota only had one arm to try and remove the hold of Reagan from him. This pounded uselessly against them. The vampire's lungs burned now as the force he had exerted reminded him that he was still partially human, still took some damage from him. Christ. Werewolf's other arm hung weakly down by his side, blood running from the fur, dripping from his fingers as the vampire simply lifted that arm, help drink the blood, give him back what energy he put his failed assault. Reagan spat out the blood, got the blood back out and grimaced. He couldn't absorb this foul, cursed blood, no matter. He could finish put it off. Then he felt that bloodied hand clasp into his forearm, claws digging. Palm began to burn on his flesh. Dakota was trying to make his own foolish dog. Brain implode energy. 10,000 grams of pure caffeine. Eat goose. It's insane. Dog. Vampire hissed and began to smash Dakota into the floor, bashing him hard into the concrete as it chipped and fragmented against the two of them. The vampire would break the smite yet. Reagan forced what power he could into the arm being burned to try to counter that spell, but he could not break that grasp. So he sent the mutt through the floor, letting gravity and the force of the fall do it for him. Dakota could only watch in helplessness as his body failed to react in time. Having landed in a heap before Reagan dropped down to this level. Werewolf tried to get up, but only found boots kicking against him hard as Reagan attacked and stomped onto him, keeping him down. Dakota felt a kick bring him up off the floor enough for Reagan to launch him upwards, only for him to swiftly be launched away into another pillar supporting the building. Dakota cried out in rage and pain, felt that blow remove the knife buried into his shoulder, but not before it was twisted about from all the other impacts he levied. Blood pooled below him as his other hand clasped over his shoulder. Dakota stood up, only to once more have that clawed hand of the vampire's clasp on him, sending massive amounts of pain through him. That's when he felt something else activate. Breathlessly, as he felt his body shamble forward in defiance of the hand grasped around his neck, he willed himself to cling to the air burning in his chest. He roared back at the heavily breathing man. So, Dakota began with a snark. Were your humanity for that? Dakota choked on in a retort before using a radiant spell. The spell of Holy Radiance connected with Reagan's chest, causing the vampire to loosen his grasp on Dakota. Dakota pressed his newfound advantage with a barbaric one-handed haymakers and straight heel kicks, powered by the strength spell coursing through his battered and broken body. Dakota pressed his newfound advantage with barbaric one-handed haymakers. Great heel kick. Powered by the strength spell from his. Powered by the strength spell coursing through his battered and broken body, his watch had kicked back on. Vampire howled in pain before screaming out in blind rage. Enough! The last bit of defiance Dakota mustered was now back to being punched out of it. Reagan leveled haymaker after haymaker into Dakota. Each punch taking all Dakota could muster to parry and block with his good arm. Eventually, though, that arm failed to raise to protect him, and Fix began to connect to the said, "You're nothing but a mangy dog of the mud, judges, fit to serve a purpose, then die like so many before you." Reagan hissed out in cold rage as he walked Dakota backwards towards another pillar, leaving Dakota's back against as a vampire punch slashed clawed into Dakota's body. The final punch sent Dakota down to his knees, looking into the growing pool of blood baked into the dust and cement chips beneath them as he breathed heavily. Stars filled his vision as he braced for some sense. Slime is lurking. That is freaking horrible and catastrophe to the body. Why am I shaking uncontrollably? Why is my chest hurting? Dakota should kiss the vampire. There. So I'm over here being like, yes, the two enemies need to kiss now. I can see it happening. Anyways, it was eerie. As the stars began to subside from the impact, he looked up to Reagan standing over. The vampire was breathless. Winston tried to get up, only for a dark boot of the vampiric postman to dig into his shoulder. Dakota gasped out noiselessly as he choked on the knot left in his. The vampire pushed him back down into the floor, with malice and anger bubbling up in his voice. "I am no longer Reagan to you. From here on out, your memories will only know by one. I am the Bloodsmith, the burner of all they hold dear." Sing saves it. This is a great idea. Oh. We'll see. I'm not making any promises, nor is this confirmation that is going to happen. Before anything else could happen, another taste entered Dakota's mouth, but it was not a taste of fear nor rage, desperation. But some, as if summoned out of thin air, the Bloodsmith barely had any time to even react as a force of some otherworldly nature collapsed on him, sending him reeling away as the world around Dakota faded to black. Eerie analogy. The Bloodsmith knew his victory was at hand. He had them up right below his heel. He wanted to savor his foe's end and relish in the delight it would bring him when he put down the agency's best lapdog. Now that was taken from him. The shadowy mass that attacked him gave no words, no warning, just action. Pure, focused, unadulterated action. Vampire tried his best to catch himself on the ground, only for that ground to suddenly be away from him as a blast of purple energy seeped into his palm and up through his arm, sending him directly upward into the awaiting weapon of shaping steel that was there for him. The figure holding the weapon with a cold, calculated malice. There's only one other time in Reagan's life where he felt this fearless. That was something he never thought he would. The other postman did not show any signs of exertion as she brought the vampire up the length of his spear, running it through him as she pulled him in closer by his shoulder. The pain was unlike anything the Bloodsmith had before. He cursed as he tried to pry himself free of her weapon. Before would be able to, assuming top his head. The vampire began to leverage his entire body against her spear as she broke her grip on the weapon. Fell back down to the concrete floor with that weapon, which fell sharpened down. Dark. Garlic knife moment. Kissy. This isn't garlic knife moment. This is before Dakota has this Starfell. This is Erie's weapon that she has. She has basically a ball of metal that is enchanted with shaping magic that she can will to be whatever shape she needs it to be. But it has no holy power in it. It's just that. Eerie has a nice set of booba. How do you know? You've never seen Eerie's booba. She started to draw him. Rage, he started to draw himself off that spear before Eerie called it back to her. She held out her hand to call it back as the spear dissolved into dust before it reformed into a new shape. Open the scythe. Any shape? Y'all need to chill. Do you not need crazy? You guys are down bad. Reforged into a new shape, a wicked scythe. The end of the curved blade worked its way around the vampiric postman as he leapt away from him. It caught the end of his arm and ripped, then dropped to the floor in a spasm of pain. The bloodsmith cried out, he would kill this other postman. As if correcting him, Eerie spoke. Her voice seeped into his brain unlike a voice normally does, as if he heard it in his head instead of it. Obviously. This is so heated rivalry core. I can't believe I'm using the continuity chat to mess with the lore. Or are you setting up a fanfic? Are we? You guys are crazy. The Wiggle the Princess is much. This is so heated rivalry core. I mean, you're not wrong. Reagan and Eerie are going to be there. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, the idea is there's no way the Bloodsmith could beat Eerie in a fight, like one-on-one. So he needs to basically, for I don't know if you're here for it, John, but there are postmen in the order of the Postman Guild that are supernaturally enhanced. So Reagan was made out of a vampire, Dakota was made out of a werewolf, there's one that's going to be a dragon, and then Eerie is Eldritch. I have no idea. I have no idea what you mean by that, clearly. But the idea is that out of all the other postmen Reagan can fight, he knows he can't beat an Eldritch being. Because he just does not have the technology nor the arsenal to deal with it. So, for hockey showing boys. Lord. Dot, you're lucky you put that preference, or not preface, but whatever, after what you said. Not based on Twilight. This is based off of proper vampires, werewolves now. Monsters, okay? Anyways, been at this for like an hour and 20 minutes, and we haven't written much. As if correcting him, Eerie spoke. Her voice seeped into his brain unlike a voice normally, as if it was in his head instead of her voice leaving. Many have claimed to be able to do that. He will be another corpse on that list. Before Reagan can even defend himself, he felt that dark blade impale into the remnants of a destroyed limb before it was pinned to his side with a sickening crack. He felt the metallic dust burrow into him as that scythe morphed into a chain. The other end clasped in Eerie's hand as she yanked it back, pulling the bloodsmith in as she simply backhanded him with her free hand. The dark, magical metal burned inside him as he channeled some of her power through the chain. He had to get away, but how? At this rate, she'd tear him in half. She smirked violently as she spun about, smashing Reagan into another pillar some distance away. The chain removed itself from his side as she began to will it back to her. The impact gave the vampire a chance to remember he had his gun yet. He drew the heavy weapon up in his good hand and fired up around it. The dark energy of the revolver fired forth and hit Eerie square in her chest. He swore it did. The round seemed to do nothing to the other postman as she continued to call her reshaping weapon back to her side. The metallic dust took the shape of an oblong spear of maddening potential as she finally let herself touch the floor. What kind of monster are you? Eerie ignored him as her boots clacked heavily against the concrete. Thunder boomed off in the distance, letting the fighters know not to ring. Eerie strode up to Reagan, slowly, methodically, as if she was toying with a cornered prey. The vampire lord squeezed the trigger of his weapon, only to see the sphere swoop in and catch each bullet. Welcome back, Lime. The magical rounds were siphoned of their magical energy, where they fell moments later from the sphere, clattering uselessly onto the floor. He was out of rounds. She was nearing him. He needed to reload. Come any closer, he screamed at her before dropping his gun and clasping the pillar next to him. I'll bring this building down. You must have seen how many pillars are left, right? The vampire made his gambit, panicking, oozing from him. Reagan was hoping she would stop just long enough for him to prepare his most dangerous spell. An onslaught of dark energy welled in his chest, waiting him into. Before he could move, he felt her magic bore into his being once more. Dark tendrils of power broke through his mind before she came up to him, using telekinesis to drag him up off the floor and towards her. Her face was darkened from her hood, but her eyes glow malevolently, darkness obfuscating her features. Horror, pure, unwavering horror was all he could feel in his. He wouldn't be given a chance to say much else or even unleash the spell before she worked him over with unseen punches and kicks, assaulting his body with invisible power before tossing him back into that pillar he had hoped to knock down. I have to get my brother on. Oh. Well, hopefully he defines that time for you. I love it when brothers do that. Crazy when they do that, right? Sorry, I had a Discord message. Clear it out. It may well be. Oh, jeez, that's not too far from here, right? Time-wise? She then stopped briefly, sighing out and reshaped her spear into a gnarly-looking rifle. Sharp spikes that ran along its. Oh, that means making his points all average again. Sharp spikes that ran along its housing, and she aimed at its head. Before she could fire, though, he unleashed the blast, hitting her square in the chest as he then cried out and wrenched the pillar out from the floor. He laughed maniacally as he staggered up to his feet, using his hemokinesis to will his severed arm back to him. The mangled limb flopped and twitched as it was drawn back towards the vampire lord. I told you, her voice rang out, said once more. Just another corpse. As that happened, a massive blast of otherworldly power surged into him, sending him spiraling out into that raining, thundering night as she would return for him. Surely, he wouldn't go far after hitting the ground. She had to save Dakota. I'm sure you got this. Ooh, nice Imba. She had to save Dakota. The building was beginning to crumble, fall apart as she strode on, seemingly unfazed by the destruction befalling this husk of concrete and rebar. She looked for her fellow foes. She had to get to him before the building tore itself apart. Thankfully, due to his injuries, he had not moved from the pile of rubble and blood he was left in. But he was in bad shape. She grimaced and realized she couldn't kill Reagan and save Dakota. They needed him yet. They could kill the vampire another time. Heaving softly, she brought Dakota into her arms and ran out of the crumbling structure, leaping. Her shaping magic sphere began to work on mending what it could of Dakota as she landed another nearby unfinished. Rain continued to fall as that dark, terrible night began to change into a dim, haunting. Yuri knew the higher-ups would be mad at her for her failure. But this was the right thing to do here. Could it not be? A week had passed since that night. Dakota sighed softly as he stepped out of the main entrance of the spire. The city was still recovering from the events that happened as a group of people stood outside the base of the short flight of marbled stairs that led up to the main floor. Old stairs that led up to the main floor of the building. Postman watch spire of New York. It was more a set dressing than anything. It was a total rise in height. Was that of about 5 feet. I'm starting to struggle to read here. Dakota was mostly unkempt, not shaven, nor hair cut back down since that night. He was weary, exhausted and drained from that fight with the bloodsmith. Yet, he softly sighed to himself under his breath. He sighed softly to himself under his breath and gazed out into the crowd, looking for any familiar faces. He hated conferences, especially when they of all things that he was a part of. Failure still clung to his mending body as he tested his shoulder. His arm was not wanting to move right. First, his weakness and lack of skill as the sling kept his arm in place. Balling his fist before flexing out his fingers, next to a fellow postman. This was the one who called out the situation groundside from the night of the fires. He kept his head low as Dakota patted his shoulder with a good hand. This had been their first major failure. This had been the first major failure for all postmen. Sleeping is good. Dakota sat down with a bit of deliberation as he really didn't want to be here. He had to check on his sister. He had to let her know she was safe and well. He hadn't seen her over 3 weeks, and while he knew she was safe, he didn't like leaving Emily alone like this, especially with all the news being put out. He'd see her tonight if he needed to. Before he could get up and leave, other postman agents sat down. All continuing conversations they started before they left the main building. Hushed tones among them as the crowd began. Dakota would try to focus on one of the conversations, but couldn't get the words out of his mouth about what he had said during them. He found it odd that she still chose to save him when he had Reagan dead to Ray. She admitted that she didn't expect Reagan to be able to move after she left his body mostly broken and dropped from several hundred feet. He must have found another victim nearby. Dakota continued to go through the fight in his head, wondering if he should have just taken the shots. The civilian was already dead. Did he pause because he saw his sister in that vampire's clutches? Here. You never know. You never know his answers to that, but he continued thinking before a soldier nudge brought his attention back to them. No skills, however. He sat up straighter in his chair and looked over the now fully assembled team. More political body members, as well some of the governors, barons, mayors, and lords from neighboring cities, all sat down, row of steps ahead of the police, along with armored police that stood at the bottom of the stairs, keeping eyes ever vigilant for anyone who dared disturb this one, creating a barrier between the guild's members and who was inspired. Dakota already knew who was coming. Still couldn't even believe that they, let alone both groups of them. King and Queen, along with the senator and her husband, were here today as well. Both parties had not met together in the city since this building was established. Seeing the ruling parties of this country together in such a great ruling parties of this country together in such a place, so much of a shock. Dakota, it was to everyone else here. The Tech Mage Knights came out of the tower first, flanking either side of the doorway, proud in armor. The hulking armor figures paused before they raised their spears high and stood at the room. The stillness of it all, Dakota wondered if they were expecting something to happen. Soon, the king and queen would walk out, followed closely behind the senator and her husband as the knights kept their position. "No, I need my dollars." Wouldn't take much longer before the king stood at the podium, overlooking above the city's crowd. He held his hands up, slowly lowered them, gesturing to the people to quiet down. So, admittedly, Dakota didn't know of a single person. He had been the symbol of peace and prosperity since he was brought in as a prince to spoke with a level of authority who could hold a crowd's attention. Even today, Dakota knew. As this dark night embraces us, we stand before you all, heartbroken, maddened, distraught for the actions of despicable violence that occurred here in the city. The king kept his head held high, looking out over the news reporters and onto his civilians as the king came up beside him, holding his hand onto his hand as he continued his speech. They were quite young for rulers. That was their biggest criticism. Young to have what we need such a role. But now more than ever, they were few. Voice of reason. News reporters began clamoring, talking amongst themselves as the civilians of the city listened to him, trusting that the wisdom of the king had to offer. Trust in the postman was waning after the We have been blessed with the forces of peace in our great city, those that protect us all. They serve as a beacon of hope for us. Let there be light even in this darkness. For the sake of our nations and our unity, I humbly ask you hopes in them. Pauses to gauge the crowd's reaction before adding it, and as much as we do, he looked over the agents to his left and right as he asked them to stand. Dakota was the first to rise. These men and women have done all they could to help protect you. The idea of such power was among. Looking back to the crowd slowly hanging. Looking back to the crowd slowly hanging. I would have done more to ensure that this would not have happened. Dakota looked towards the king with a bit of shock. He didn't even know they had supernaturally powered members. The crowd began to look at each other and nod before another clamor. The king raises his hands once more in silence. We also hope that you can still remain in understanding that these infallible people are not perfect, and still strive to do all that they can to protect us. Starting today, we'll be rebuilding the district ravaged by that vampire lord. Will not cower into defeat, as that would sully the memories of all those lost that day. The queen stepped back, allowing him to raise both his arms and the crowd silent. Our plan is simple yet twofold, but first I will have the senator fill you in what we will do. That's all. He stepped back, offering the microphone to Madam Senator. His throat. News guilds continued to work in a flurry of motion as they recorded everything. Put a side out and looked away from the crowd. In honor of them, add their number to the stars above. For this night will be a candle vigil to them. All this night of 1,000 stars. Started. I scanned over the crowd as people began to notice that she looked like she had just done crying. There were rumors of her daughter being back. Failure, but oh no! Be not afraid. And then you throw balls at me. Dakota couldn't stay here. So the Wolven postman got up and left. No one stopped him as he slinked away. The voice of the Madam Senator continuing on as he goes to leave. One noticed him leaving, despite the empty chair there. That's the forward and prologue. That took us like a long time to read. Alright, on to the next document. Serial 1. Episode 1. Pale Sunlit Morning. 8. Thursday, April 28th, 2699. On a first new time. Locale mid-districts. Calls a boat. When not, you fail. Always know what you did to get there and improve. Hope from the higher echelon of doctors shared amongst the various men. The smell of dust and the worn leather still stung his nose. The young man was bouncing side to side impatiently as he put the soles of his boxing shoe material the boxing ring. His knuckles still hurt from the last hour spent practicing his moves on an insanely sturdy sandbag. One of the greater parts of this place was stubborn resilience and older tech and trading. Something Jared grew quite fond of over his time coming to this gym and fitness center. It was about an hour from closing time when he started his training with it. A rough and rowdy man, years of experience etched into his body through scars, pocket marks, and tattoos from his glory day. Veteran of war fought before Jared's time, and long before he was brought to Albany. Jared kept his eyes locked on that man's hand as he shook them free of excess dust and sweat. Give Jared forward. Without hesitation, Jared began to pushing directly towards his target with reckless abandon. Clearly a strategy not employed by him before, given the surprise front the trainer made as the young man closed. This swung out as a voice echoed through Jared's mind with heat. Good haymaker, but should have followed up with a jab. Nice parry, but would have been better to duck. Remember that it is okay to backstep to reach. It is a very unfortunate name, and it's also my name. So, yeah, I know. Very unfortunate. That's why we go by Dakota. Book. Fragments of pain burned into Jared's mind as he realized this. Him recalling his time with Ronnie, as he relived his first official boxing match against the men. Gotta make sure, going all an opponent, that he keeps himself protected yet. Jared winced in his mind as he felt a haymaker connect with his shield, causing him to stagger backwards to the ring's ropes. He calmed himself and breathed heavily before roaring back. I mean, Quiznos is better. Also, Jersey Mike's is better. But I don't have any of those near here. It's also really unfortunate, too, that you mentioned that, because when I was a kid, that's how I used to introduce myself to people. I would be like, yeah, Jared, like the Subway guy. Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Let's not rely on the jewelry store. Because surely nothing will go wrong there. Surely nothing at all. He caught himself and breathed heavily before going right back into the fight. He was brought down in seconds as Ronnie goes over all of Jared's mistakes, punctuated with a hit to Jared's body, a blow to the shoulder, a kick to his thigh, to his face, a heel kick. Always know what your backup options are with someone stronger. Figure out their weaknesses on the fly if you cannot figure them out. I mean, I could try to. Yeah, Quiznos did go bankrupt. I could try to mail you Chick-fil-A. I mean, Jesus Chicken's good and all, but, like, it's not going to survive that trip. The veteran sends a hand down to Jared, helping him back up to his feet as the shift and the cold hits his face. He then finds himself looking up towards the vile face of Bloodsmith. Reagan, the Bloodsmith, as questions his mentor's teaching as a hit, kick, and punch brings a flood of memories back into his mind of that. What should I have done differently? It was after a brief few moments had passed, him being tossed aside from the Bloodsmith, where his mind was brought back to the present day as something known as bell ring, pulsing with muffled words from a very moment. His alarm clock was ringing. Time for him to get up. It was time to get up and leave his questions for later. Later being in this next moment, subconsciously. Today is Thursday, 28th of April. Time is 5:02 p.m. The weather is mild, cloudy, and threatening to rain overcast for the voice droned on as the rugged woven man calmed the clock off, stretching slightly as he tugged the shirt over his body with practiced stillness of motion. He grumbled something to himself as he threw on a pair of joggers and grabbed his watching tool, timing the pair on as he stumbled sleepily out of his room. Dakota made his way out of his room to the quiet apartment, rubbed at his beard as he didn't recall the last time he shaved it. Admittedly, he gave up on a lot of his normal keep-yourself-looking professional habits, something his therapist would say is a sign of him not being over that man. He grumbled softly as if arguing with ghosts before he entered the bathroom. After a quick face wash and application of deodorant, he gazed into the mirror. He was still tired looking. He felt like he had aged more than he should have. His hair had grown noticeably darker and more gray. Dakota sized himself up back in the mirror as he looked himself over. He was still as much of himself as he ever was. Just something was off. Dakota looked over his features in the mirror as he took off his shirt and looked over the scars and wounds. Still there. He said to them, "Oh, I'm sure they were. I'm pretty sure a lot of Quiznos marketing was based off of somebody behind. Yep, still there," he said to them. Went back. He went for the medicine cabinets beside him, grabbed up a topical ointment and bandages to the red healing jagged wounds. So, after a few minutes of that and freshening himself back up, Dakota tucked his shirt back over his body and left the small bathroom as he... The flat was quiet, save for the soft hum of power. Save for the soft hum of power and the fans whirring. Fresh air was moved through the unit to keep the building relatively cool. Warm, soft, white light strips illuminated his walking down the hall. The lights were only broken apart by 4 different doors. His room, one for the bathroom he had just left, the other for a spare room, and the fourth door was shut tight and fast. His only sign of knowing Emily was still home. No, I can see it. It was a modest place, suitable for Dakota and his adopted son. A good home, even though he felt like he barely spent enough time here. As he passed out of the hallway, he looked out over the city through the massively wide window, tempted to keep the brightness of the ambient neon cityscape out of his own. The window was across the way through his living room. There wasn't much to note of that space, as it was only really filled with a simple couch, hollow screen, and various gym machines on the opposite wall. Dakota stood still briefly as he watched bright light slowly creep under the horizon through the standing silhouettes of towering spires and stuff. He did enjoy this view. The woven postman then checked to see if he had any messages come through in his sleep as he quietly made his way to the fast kitchen. The kitchen was mostly neutral colors, the kind of unassuming colors commonly associated with a rental or temporary home. However, this apartment was made into a more permanent residence. Someone decided that yet another year of renting wasn't so bad. But also, Jack in the Box was really, really good, though. It was one of the best fast food places, and I will stand up as Jack in the Box. They did have a really, really bad streak, though, of they had a bunch of like contaminated food come through their stores. But that was more so because their main supplier of like their produce was also, they had cut corners, and so then it just trailed down and Jack in the Box was caught up. I think there was another couple restaurants too that were caught up in that, but they had like an E. coli outbreak. The kitchen was mostly neutral colors, the kind of unassuming colors commonly associated with rental or temporary home. However, this apartment was made into a more permanent residence as someone decided that yet another year of renting wasn't too bad. The layout of the kitchen was a short galley style, having the appliances all lined on the wall, spaced out with small pantries and countertops to help break them open. The sink was what divided the stove, the dishwasher, and refrigerator. A design choice that floored Dakota, as he never quite got used to having gone from one end of the kitchen to the other, cook dinner, and bring the dirty dishes over the stove to put in the refrigerator. The kitchen was divided out from the living area by a one long simple island with bar stools aligned inside. All simple with basic padding and back support. There was a Jack in the Box VTuber? Huh. I did not know that. He scratched at the nape of his neck as he looked over the pile of random papers on him. College courses, he said to no one listening as he continued to kitchen proper. As he made his way around the corner of the island, he saw the hollow paper fresh with an article about it being the first anniversary of the Night of 1,000 Stars. Couldn't bother reading. Dakota shifted as his tail idly bumped into the counter beside him, as barely paying attention to what his hands were doing, still reading over the various news articles compiling onto screens. Each one also talking about the 1-year anniversary of the Postman's greatest failure. It feels weird having that song play when we're doing his greatest failure, the Night of 1,000 Stars. Dakota grimaced as he saw pictures of the king and the senator giving their speeches from that day. Their words still echoed through. Still trying, he said softly to himself, as the smell of brewing coffee was soon overpowered by the sudden smell of lilac. He knew that scent anywhere, as it was her favorite perfume to use. Good morning, Anne. Well, he turned around. Soft grunt and heavy sigh were all he heard before she sat down on the opposite side of the aisle. Just to call him short, did he just stop streaming? Oh, they better pay. They're like, I'll take you home for free, but your friends are going to need to compensate for gas. Emily Howell was similar in complexion to Dakota, but if anything, she was even more pale and fairer of skin. The only blemish the elf had was a gnarly scar that ran down her left cheek, a souvenir from the day that Dakota found her and brought her in. She had long platinum blonde hair that had 3 dyed streaks on it. Bright, vivid streaks of cyan, light green, and yellow ran. They obscured her face, but Dakota knew she was reading them. Her green eyes looked tiredly down to the hollow paper as she swiped the article over, glancing through the different reports showing the soft. Oh, that sucks. Speaking of things that suck, bark! Wolf, wolf, bark. Thinking an awawa? I mean, there's an ara, but not an awawa. What's how awawa? Awawawa? Awawawa? Is that how you do it? The amazing digital footprint. Me, when the FBI finds all the sites I've had my tendrils buried into. Hey, obscure face, glancing through the different reports on sophomore. Heavy pattering of small footsteps followed up as Dakota felt something bumped into his leg. Corey was also out. The 1-foot-long rock gecko clearly also wanted some breakfast or coffee before anything. Dakota took a moment from his coffee making to fetch Corey some on the top shelf of the cabinet left. The top shelf of the cabinet left to the refrigerator. Dakota pulled out a small metallic box. He gently reached into it and brought out a handful of bolts. Dakota released the bolts. They clanked into a white glass dish, the label on it signifying "Do not use this bowl except for the gecko." Corey let out a happy noise that sounded like a small hole in a tire releasing air as Dakota set the bowl down. Stony. Another heist begins. He's running low. Better get him some more soon. Can't have him eating my wake cycle. But a tea. Tired elf grumbled softly. Right, coffee first, then. Not changed much, he said, half joking. He knew her college courses were getting to him, but he still needed to channel that big brother energy. If timed perfectly, the coffee booth, Wolfenook man smiled softly as he pulled up, passing it to Emily as she sat silently. Working today, she asked after a swim. Her ears often betrayed her emotion, her howl still. Wanted the answer to be no. I was anyone's. Didn't seem to mind it when Dakota was on the clock no. Was Bob. Yeah, I'm working here though at least, so I'll be around if you need me. But that means I'll take the public train. Scared of hitting me? Nah. Just can't handle the insurance bill. They chuckled softly as Dakota continued with his cup. Dan began making something simple for breakfast as they continued their morning in soft sizzling sound. Eggs drowned out the other muffled noises. Indicators that they both watched head over. I'm that type of guy to be that type of guy, eh? Well, I do be that type of guy that is that type of guy. Bam. Badass motherfucker. Drowned out muffled noises. Their communicators as they both watched and read over the various articles and news feeds as they went along. Bread was toasted and served with a bit of eggs and bacon along with a small cup of chopped, served a bowl of white yolk. Perhaps a bit much, but Dakota wanted to make sure Emily got it good. Savage is the type of guy who's like, I want to hit up the arcade. Hey! Dude, I do like going to arcades, okay? Don't target me like that, chum. What the hell? What's wrong with going to arcades? Oh, man. With little to no ceremony, breakfast was soon eaten and the relative messes cleaned up, leaving the two siblings alone in the kitchen for a moment before Corey went to the cave and lived. As they worked together to cleaning up the dishes, taking care of the coffee machine, placing the ring. This is the dishwasher. Dakota called for the hollow screen to turn on and go to the new. You're still set to do that understudy with Regist, right? Dakota was proud. He was proud in her for wanting to pursue a magic wielder's life, despite his reservations. Why she wanted. Emily was naturally inclined, given the heritage she had. She took to the spells was taught by his old guardian. She had mastered them faster than he. But he knew that this would just serve to continue the promise made when they first found him. Make it right. But he had larger duties. Coda understood entirely why she wanted a postman, but having her in this line of work was something he wanted, regardless of her skills. But millennials. Alright, well then, I'm not 81! Need a drink. All this reading is making my voice sound a lot older than I am. It was a point of contention between the two of them, and she felt it was best for their goals to also become affiliated with the postman, and him thinking she should magic craft it. They both wanted justice for their missing family. For them to be found, and that the part of their lives to be expressed properly. Things had clashing ideas. There aren't many arcades left, though, either, which is also kind of a sad thing. And I'm not going to like Chuck E. Cheese or David Buster's. I feel like that'd be a bad idea. However, the discussion about it wouldn't solve anything. Coda knew he couldn't keep her from going down that path. Down that path that would make her a postman. Yet he knew she'd be spared of everything that made him who he was. That project was shut down. Long since shut down. He had always told her that he always told her he became a werewolf through becoming. He had explained to her before she committed down that path that she should still be normal. Wasn't the postman this way. The memories of his time before becoming a werewolf to provide for his new family were always bittersweet. If I come to Michigan, we go to a fucking New York.
Sesby and Lex.
Sesby and Lex? Sounds like a villain in a porno's name. But no, like, the only reason why Chuck E. Cheese came to mind so fast is because I do live like 5 minutes away from a Chuck E. Cheese. Maybe a little bit of exaggeration, but it's really close. His family were bittersweet. Pugilist was not enough to care for his sister too. Something but rewarding for guardian himself. Ironically enough, biggest regret was the one choice he couldn't ever take. When he joined the military guild, the Arcane region, he wasn't aware he'd ever meet the judges or anyone with such authority in the world. The powers that shaped and held the fragile world together, regulated so much magic, changed his thinking. But for someone just becoming. Oh hell no, they got them haunted robots. Yeah, the recycled pizza slices thing, I think they ended up proving that it wasn't every Chuck E. Cheese that did it, but it was like a handful of them that were doing it. Just insane. It was changed, altered, rebuilt, all after being torn apart completely and reforged into. He missed his old self, his human self, but he knew he had to sacrifice it for her and for their lost family. If he ever wanted to bring justice to their names, this is the way he had to do it. Judges said so themselves when they. The trip through his mind. The trip through his mind was brought back to reality as Emily said something that made him realize this was not the first time she had asked this question to him. What's up? All he could ask as the elf brushed her hair back as she contemplated a question she'd been meaning to ask to come. Jared, I really think we should talk about what I'm going to do after I'm through with my degree. Well, so long as you have a different idea to offer, I'm all ears. Emily hated that retort. Senior, I am not that old. I only just turned 33. Shut up. Stop bullying me. No, I think that is our best bet yet. Will help us figure out what happened. You still want to keep that promise, right, Jared? Oh, I hate that. Do still want to keep that promise. We just got things going on bigger than us now. He said, remembering that day, remembering the first time he was someone's hero. He knew he made his parents proud wherever they were. Find them. Responsible for taking them. Start looking into it now. I can do it. That's why I've been taking these classes. I'll join them. Also, I do apologize. We spent most of the stream reading versus writing. It's already been 2 hours. And we're still not even through it all. I'm so old. That?
Ah hell nah. They done put da Master Chief in da soder.
Oh, hell no. They put the Master Chief in the soder. Can I be annoyed at the fact that it's Fanta, not Mountain Dew? Can I be annoyed at that? I feel like I can be annoyed at that. I will not stop Jared from super. I'm not Jared Padalecki. Goodness. It's not like you'll be able to tell me no. Like when we first talked about this, I'm an adult now. I may not have a job yet, but I can get one. Job isn't going to finish your schooling now. We both know that any job available right now is definitely not going to give you the time to prepare to join the postman. Let's talk about this again another day. At least through with school. August has finished.
Let's go gambling!
Wait, that worked? Hold up. So the gambling line only works when you don't put up any money? Okay. That's something Jared from Supernatural would say. I mean, look, trust me, if I was half as handsome of a man that guy was, I wouldn't be here. Job isn't going to finish your schooling, though. We both know. I guess he's also very against the postman, so you better not let him know that is why you're having him. Toto only ever lied to Emily twice when they're talking about the postman. Once to explain that they made him what he was, and once that Regis didn't like them for it. In reality, he would eventually need to tell her the truth, and that he was made this way by something else, the Arcane. Postman would still give her the augments and boosts she needed to help on her quest for justice for her family, but the time, doubtful. Wait, what? Oh, the comic. Huh. I guess it is 2003. Huh. I remember seeing it later on, though. Alright, we'll talk about this another time, she said softly. But only because I know you can't refute me this time, she added with a smug smirk. They stood there in silence for a moment before Dakota ran his hand through his hair and said, Yeah, you got me in a corner on this. I can't really control what you want to do when you're well into being an adult, he said before stretching out with a gruff yawn. But I'd still do pay for rent and not charge you for it, so we're even. Whatever. I'm gonna go get ready. When do we gotta leave today? Near 7. I'll be able to freshen up more at work if needed. They don't want me wearing my uniform when not on the clock. At least when I'm on my way into work. Can you take me to the campus? Sure. Make sure Corey is set up in your room, though. Fine. Oh no, Kaito trolley problem if we don't switch around all over that. If I do switch over this chat. What if we derail the Kaito trolley? What if we just push the trolley off the tracks? After that, not much else transpired besides Dakota gathering up his work gear, making sure he wasn't forgetting something. Grabbed his keys, he felt his communicator buzz, pulled it out from his pants pocket, and screamed. Reading the message from his precinct's tech wizard, he nodded. Sick. I feel like we gave him a different name. Remember, I can take it. We use the RPG to blow. Oh, I could. I am strong. I am big, strong werewolf man. Goodness. Sick. He smirked softly. His new gear was finally ready. He'd been waiting on his updated gear for a while. He was tired with just running standard issue tech for the last 5 months of active service. As if she heard him, Emily was finally ready to go. What's up? As Dakota went to answer, she brushed him off. She opened the flat stubble door. We can talk about on the way to the campus. We gotta get going after. Roll for strength, Savage. Okay, well, I have like a plus 10 modifier, so. Oh! Yes! I told you! I told you! Ooh! I am strong! Rigged. The ride to the campus was relatively peaceful. It was kind of hot. What? Huh? What do you mean hot? Only a D8. Ooch. I think, what was, guys? No thirsting over the streamer. The ride to the campus was relatively peaceful, just simple questions exchanged on the radio between show hosts filled the idle era in the Omni. All the while, Emily worked on her schoolwork. Dakota would keep his mind busy thinking of that night, still pondering what he could have done better, differently. Nothing came to mind. He always forgot how massive Silver Scale was. The Academy applied magics. Uh-oh. I wrote myself as trying to steal Savage's gold. Busted! Dakota always forgot how massive Silver Scale, the Academy applied magics, was as it loomed before them. Opposing gleaming walls of opal white were lined with buttresses wrapped around the massive structure as tall dark spires went in a semicircle pattern around the main building that made up the college grounds. The bright arching bulb of lattice work and silver shone through the spires as different tunnels and walkways dotted and arched spire to the main campus building. There were 4 total buildings that made up the Academy of Applied Magic, the centermost being the city's most notable structure. Actually, I have a mod of 128,312. Ram catches you and imprisons you in the black cells. Adhel is the black jail cells. The main building was a large castle-like fortress dressed up in all the regal splendor of the library. Stained glass murals shone in stark contrast to the rest of the building's pale silver colors. The stained glass murals depicted different scenes throughout the history of the colony, framing of how the city was brought up out of the eve of the last old time and brought into personal. One of the magnificent banners dotted the courtyards around each building, noting off each building had their main educational focus. Dakota knew it was mostly for show, as classes would be between each building. Silver Scale was built over 600 years ago, brick fashion by a guild that tried to often emulate the classic architectural feel in modern buildings. The higher districts were covered in buildings of this nature, all likely built from the same building. The old war-inspired structure gleamed in the early morning light for the Omni Day. For heist, if I do. Dream for something, so. Go gambling. I rolled a steel dice gold. Something that Dakota never quite figured out about Silver Scale was who helped the judges fund it. as the judge's influence on funding would usually lead to buildings having very simplistic and minimalistic designs. Extremely pragmatic. Realistically, it didn't matter who else funded it, as the funding was probably secured in majority charity and taxes. But given the history of what silver scale meant to the common folk, there had to be dragons. He pivoted the Omni vehicle down the main parking lot as he followed the onboard's computer guide for parking. No structure. He uses the vehicles. Make sure you let me know if you need anything. Right? Yeah, when will you be home? Yeah, when will you be home? Probably after 8, unless they got me on a hunt. I'll send in the order list to the store for you if you get schoolwork. Pick it up. I'm always bored of it. Yeah, I hated school too. Anyways, gotta go. Take care. I'll see you later. Swing by for dinner if I can. Good. I don't like making dinner for myself. Just myself. I'm terrible at the portions. Same, Dakota chuckled. Calling their first dinner as a family. He had made way too much pasta. They were sick of noodles after the third night. Still that. Aw, 4 sucks. Womp womp. And with that brief exchange of words, the siblings went their separate ways for them. He went off towards the campus. Dakota gently worked the Omni vehicle out of the parking lot as he was with time. Dakota mulled on the silence and added into his thinking about Emily's desired control. He'd have to tell her the truth soon. Dakota pulled the Omni vehicle into his parking spot in the underground garage. Dakota ran his hand through his hair again as his wife, giving him the 5-minute warning of being late. He grumbled about it and got out of his car. He looked over the machine. Why are you wanting to steal that little bit of gold out of my blood, Ennis? Lime, you're struggling today. Sorry to see that. He grumbled about it as he got out of his car. He looked over the machine, marveling himself. Still one of the coolest rides he ever saw. The car itself was a bit sleek in nature, flared only at the back, jet black with dark blue stripes along the top and sides for the English feature. Windows wrapped around from the front about halfway down the sides where the rear doors would be. Where the rear wheels could fold in, there were several notches and vents for the jets that would propel along. Fancy bit of science and magic he can never. Why? In front of all of us? Why is that your highest roll today, Lime? Do you have something you need to tell us? As he popped... Okay. It's a bit of science and magic he can never fully use. As he popped open the back door of the Omni vehicle, he reached into the back seat for his work double and weapons. Latching the set of gear from the floor after the... Now that he was on postman grounds, he didn't need to worry about being noticed by someone. He sighed as he worked his gear onto his shoulder and back where he left the flying car. Thumbed the key twice as the vehicle chirped and locked down, letting him know that not a soul could get there unless it was himself. With that, Dakota was at work. As he entered the postman tower on the subfloor, Dakota checked in with security and punched in 7 a.m. on time. The woven postman into the locker rooms inside software. Finally, time to get to work. It's just a little loud in my ear. I'm a shower, not a... What? A shower? Shower. Good grief. Thanks for the information, Lime. I appreciate that. Dakota away the locker rooms inside software. Finally, time to get to work. The common area for the locker room was standard for people, except each locker was a small private spot for each stationed postman to keep some of their more specialized gear. An idea he both loved and hated for equal measures. And there is no dragon to seduce here. We're not there yet. Finally, time to get to work. Except each locker was a small private spot for each station postman to keep some of their more specialized gear. An idea he both loved and hated for it. Although thinking about it more, he wished he could just have his equipment with him the entire time. Make his life easier and would allow him to just do it. Dakota waved at a fellow postman, leaving her locker as he then opened up. Being a super soldier like he was, did afford him a bit more private space from the other one. The locker was larger and had a series of other locks on it, including a genetic test. No one would be getting in unless it was him. Or, I thought. Lime, do you want like a praise command? Do you want like a redeem that where I praise you for trying so hard? You want that? I feel like you want that. I feel like you're gonna say you want that. You don't realize you want it. No, instantly, yes. We'll see. I don't want to steal everything that Rashira has, okay? So he thought. Also, I just... Dice. Dakota was not the last person in here, as a small box and a note left on top of it told him otherwise. He glanced about before getting ready, putting on his watch fully, getting the rest of his armor on. Blinked it out, then took the box up carefully, checking for traps or anything of the sort as he looked it over, deciding the box was mostly harmless on the outside as he did. Your benefactors have decided that now is the time to increase your potential. Inside will be the first of 5 upgrades you will receive with the question mark. Know that his gifts are here to benefit you and help you with your overcoming of past failure. How? We know. He and I will meet you shortly in a way we cannot. You'll know it is us. Keep diligent and know we are forever here. You guys are gonna double. I'm not saying that out loud. I'm not saying that out loud. I'm not finishing that thought out loud. I don't want that. I don't want that smoke. Before he could even comprehend what was being read, the box sprang into action, snaring his left wrist and hand as the sound of whirring gears and magic buzzing filled the small room. Dakota went to pry the box free, but as his hands touched the box, 3 images burned into his mind. Images he had seen before. It was when he met the Jedis. Still, as his mind washed over with soft static as he felt something else change. Next thing he knew, he was standing in the center of his private prep room, eyes locked onto the new object in it. Why are you wanting to pickpocket my keyboard? Get out of my keyboard! You loot goblin! It's because they know that you are trying to get into my gear. Next thing you knew, he was standing in the center of his private prep room, eyes locked onto the object. A gleaming metal sword bound in a dark leather scabbard was what he saw. The scabbard was simple looking, just adorned with sigils and runes Dakota vaguely recognized, but he might recall they meant. He saw that they had a faint glow to them, as if it was an iridescent sheen, furious blue cycling. As it sat in his locker, Dakota felt a thought softly echo in his mind. It wasn't his voice that gave him the thought, and yet... Romulus with the 17. Pierced by the new implement of war, Dakota hesitantly reached out for the blade. As if it knew his intent, the blade rose from the scabbard it was in and slowly began to move. Dakota drew his hand back out of instinct as the sudden movement of the blade caught him off guard. As he did, the blade began to return to the scabbard. Seeing it do so made Dakota realize the blade was magically attuned to his thoughts. Well, he inferred that as he had no way of confirming that outright. He reached for the weapon again, and it came towards him. It stopped just within reach of his hand. Carefully, he grabbed the blade up by the hilt and sized it up. The blade itself was a bright silver color, with sigils and runes etched into the dark gray cross guards along the middle of the blade that shone like the sigils on the scabbard. The sword was just over 3 feet long in blade length, with a hilt nearly a hand and a half long. wrapped in leather like the scabbard was made. At the end of the hilt, in the pommel, there was a blue gem cut in the shape of a star, gave off a soft glow. The blade tapered inwards, then back out from the middle after about 1.5 feet with other blades, before collapsing back. Not design choice for sure. Lord's ass rolls you got there, Lime. Roll away way to use from my face. Aw, Lime. Trying so hard. Could have studied the sigils briefly before he gave the blade a soft fling. It felt slightly heavier than it should. He went to move the blade about. That is when he began to see the blade's metal slowly begin to glow. Pale white color, filling in the tapered bit of the blade with Dakota let the blades have to find balances, and as he realized it felt perfectly balanced now. More odd. Postman wondered whose magic craft was added in as he went. Ouch! My head! Teeth in the scabbard. Before he could even latch it shut, the scabbard lifted out of his locker and fashioned a belt from seemingly nowhere and attached itself to it. Bringing the belt around and integrating into his overcoat with a soft click and clink of metal, the blades glow died as the scabbard's sigil softly glowed brighter before. Flex, Dakota decided would test this sword out more later though, as he was wasting time. Wolf and Postman finished up, gearing up, and left his locker and headed back to the floor of the postman's boat. He wasn't late yet, but taking that long to prep surely get his boss to ask what he wanted. So long. I mean, 10's better than, but why would you want to bite my shoulder? Good grief, Morocculus! It's only Lime. Lime. I'm so sorry. Oh, goodness. Absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. Dakota made his way out of the elevator. He saw that the place was already bustling with other agents gathering bounties and talking of previous missions as they went on. Not unexpected, but he was being before shift change. Dakota slowly made his way towards the main desk, taking care not to bump into others as he went. He made small waves and greeted other agents as he passed, not stopping for conversation, nothing out of the normal. Finally, he made it to the main desk. Took only a pause briefly there to see what missions and hunts were available. Same run-of-the-mill assignments, nothing pertaining to him. One of the clerks on hand perked up after looking up from her computer with a soft gasp. Don't need to roll dice to go and use the bathroom. Dakota, I wasn't expecting you to come in here first, especially after what the boss told us. Yeah? What'd he say? That a representative of the judges would be talking to you before you got up here. He said not to mark you as late. I'm not late, am I? About 15 minutes now. Did your watch out of sync again? I guess the update made me lose time, Dakota said softly, looking to his watch, and it was 15 minutes later than he thought it was. Odd, that explains why the main floor was bustling. If you don't mind, my bad. What do they want? The clerk asked as she lowered her monocle to look at Dakota directly, seemingly off record. Dakota absently replied, the judge's representatives, did they talk to you? Talk is a strong word. See, they gave you something and changed your watch. Yeah, I haven't had time to see what all was upgraded. Is Quincy still in? Yes, she replied, brushing back her dark brunette hair out of the way of her face. There was something familiar about this clerk. Dakota knew he saw her outside of work before. Which isn't something that is meant to happen. Postman agencies tried to keep agents in other roles from interacting with each other off the clock. This could lead to favoritism and getting jobs that paid more than what was typically offered to each agent. He's been waiting for you and E and R. He seems very excited, more so than usual. Guess you really gave him something fun to figure out this time, she said, adjusting her monocle back over her eye. She looked back at Dakota with a soft smile. Nothing Dakota struggled with. something Dakota struggled with. He was still in the league of his own in comparison to other agents. He was a higher rank and had some favor yet with his weapons. Favor that was waning thanks to his fervent search for Reagan. Yeah, needed him to upgrade my pistol, as the standard issue one aren't cutting it right. Dakota then hefted up his duffel bag, his rifle latched safely inside. And he wants me to trade in this for my new rifle. Rare times when I get a full new kit, he added with a smirk. Good. Need to be at top shape. Ooh, finally got a good roll. And it's for something actually important. Don't want to cut down there. Or anywhere on your legs, really. Dakota looked at the clerk with a slightly confused look as she tilted his head for the sign. That wasn't what her lip said. He said something else. Dakota stared at her for a moment before he realized that everything else stopped around him. He looked about in confusion as he tried to piece together what was going on. Then he saw her, the shaper of death, herself. Now, I know what they wanted. She spoke into his mind, directly implanting her thoughts and words into his skull as she showed him into her room. I see the judges upgraded your arsenal. They also helped Quincy with your quest. Poor soul. He's nervous now. Got this. This only ever happened one other time. That time was before the debriefing they gave on that. She showed him all he missed from her fight with Reagan, along with her perspective of the fight that she had with the vampire. She said she had wanted him to get their story straight. It could have happened 1,000 other times. He'd still never get over the uneasy and dreaded sensation that flooded his mind as she opened it to her mind. It was a dark place, a slab of obsidian granite dust surrounded by hundreds of screens. Screens that were flickering between everything going on around them. Yuri sat in the middle of the room in an oversized chair, drinking from an antique mug as the smell of coffee seeped into Dakota's mind. Son of a... That's good, at least. What do you want? Oh, some proper respect and all. I can't always be there to save your bacon. I've been doing fine, you know. Have you? The question was very cold, but Dakota knew why she took the time to talk to him now. Needed him to be back into fighting shape. Better fighting shape. There's a lead. I have a bad time with digital dice, too. Yuri wasn't one to waste time unless there was something very important to her, like finishing something she had left undone. The death of the Bloodsmith was what this was all about. Finally, yes. It seems her problems has found footing and is about to strike, she said, getting up from her chair as the metallic sphere grabbed the mug and set it gently down on the table next to her. He had been in hiding and laying obscenely low for someone of his power, she continued, showing Dakota flashing images on the screen of all her attempts to find him, and he sort of she could scour. Seems he took to robbing a blood bank shortly after his run with us. Shame they had us on lockdown then. Could have finished the job while he was weak. Her face was obscured, but Dakota knew she was smiling. It's not a happy smile. Dakota knew better than terrible, but he had to ask how she knew this. As if he said something she could do. I know this because I saw the reports after. He didn't tell us. Someone is helping him on the inside? Possible. But I doubt. She said before suddenly being beside Dakota, holding out his sword. Oh, welcome back. She talked to the blade as if it was an old friend from yesteryear before putting it back into the sky. Great weapon, powerful. Not that they'd like me happy, he said with a tone that sounded like happiness. That weapon has slayed vampires before. It should do a great service in dealing with that edge. Thanks for that, but what else? You don't just invite me here often. That watch upgrade you got, it'll make your powers last longer, she added. And think of it like being recharged doubly and taking a quarter of the power to run your spells. That's a word for it, but also do note the screens flickered off save for one. The screen was focused in on Emily. I know what she is after too. She will get what she seeks after you try to tell her no. Save yourself the frustration and talk to her, okay? Anything else? Yeah, one more thing. The sky goes green for a leaf that is amber. Keep that in mind, will you? Rare times indeed, Clerk finally replied properly. It seemed Yuri was done talking to him. He blinked, realizing nothing else happened while he was talking to her. That magic? Alright, well, better get going. Send me my usual... Alright, well, better get going. Send me my usual hunts to my copy. I'll go on them once I'm done. Oh, before you leave, boss wants to talk to you about something. I wouldn't say what, but we think it's what today is. Yeah, seems about right. I'll talk with him later. Postman deliver justice. Alright. My best roll tonight. Meaningless. Roll to. Here. Wait. Why would you want to bite my calf? That's a very meaty part of my leg. Why do you want to bite it? Yeah, that's actually quite tragic. Speaking of things that are quite tragic, I told you. See, you need to roll not to. Then you can't. You got to use reverse psychology on it. But with that last roll, the time now being essentially. I do it before you. Roll to evade. All right, gamers. With that little brief exchange of laughter and words and reading, I can't believe we've been reading for like 2 hours and we're still not through it all. I feel like that's pretty good, but also makes me wonder if we need to change the size of the chapters. But that all being said, though, I believe now is a very good time to call it for the night. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to do. I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. I do appreciate it. We will be back. We might be back tomorrow. No promises, but if we are back tomorrow, we'll probably continue reading and then actually work on chapter 2 some more. I just was not expecting to take this long to read through this all. I guess that's kind of a good thing. But yeah, hope you all have a good night. I will see you either tomorrow or Friday when we stream. Friday, we'll definitely be doing more of this. But yeah, hope you all have a good night, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.